What if the very thing you prayed for is the very thing pulling you away from God? What if the blessing you cried over, fasted for, waited years to receive, is now quietly destroying you? It doesn't happen all at once. No warning, no alarm, just a slow, silent drift. You used to pray every day. Now, you barely remember. You used to depend on God for everything. Now, you depend on what He gave you, and without realizing it, the blessing becomes the replacement. This is one of the most dangerous spiritual conditions a person can fall into, because it doesn't feel like rebellion. It feels like success. But today, you're going to see something most people never notice. Why God Himself warns that blessings can become dangerous. Why some of the most favored people in the Bible fell after they were blessed. And how to make sure it never happens to you. Because the greatest tragedy is not when God doesn't bless you. It's when He does, and you forget Him. Long before it happened, God warned them. Not about enemies, not about war, not about famine. He warned them about success. In the book of Deuteronomy, God speaks to His people before bringing them into the promised land. A land they didn't build, houses they didn't construct, wells they didn't dig, harvests they didn't plant. Everything prepared for them. And then God says something shocking. When you have eaten and are full, when you have built beautiful houses and live in them, when your wealth multiplies, when everything you have increases, be careful that you do not forget the Lord your God. Did you catch that? God wasn't warning them about losing the blessing. He was warning them about forgetting Him because of the blessing. Because there is something about abundance, something about comfort, something about finally making it that quietly convinces the human heart, I don't need God like I used to. And that's where the danger begins. Let's be honest. Most people don't walk away from God during hard times. They run to Him. When life is falling apart, when money is low, when doors are closed, that's when prayers are strongest. That's when faith feels real. But something changes. When life gets better. When the prayers get answered. When the doors finally open. When the breakthrough comes. The same person who used to pray for hours now says, I'll pray later. The same person who couldn't go a day without God now goes days without even thinking about Him. Not because they hate God, not because they rejected Him, but because they no longer feel like they need Him. Success can create an illusion of control, an illusion of independence, an illusion that you did this. And slowly, gratitude turns into pride. Dependence turns into self-sufficiency. And intimacy with God turns into distance. You may still believe in God, but you don't rely on Him anymore. Let me ask you something. Be honest. Has your prayer life decreased? Has your life improved? Do you seek God as much now as you did when you were struggling? Or have you replaced dependence with comfort? Because this is how it happens. Not with rebellion, not with a dramatic decision, but with small, almost invisible shifts. A missed prayer here, a distracted moment there, a growing confidence in yourself instead of God. Until one day, you wake up blessed, successful, comfortable, and spiritually empty. And if you think this can't happen to you, there was a man, chosen by God, given unmatched wisdom, unimaginable wealth, and influence beyond measure. A man who started closer to God than most people ever will. And yet, his blessings became the very thing that led him away. His name was Solomon, a king unlike any other, chosen by God, favored beyond measure, a man who didn't chase wealth, but was given it. When God appeared to him, he didn't ask for riches. He didn't ask for power. He asked for wisdom, and God was pleased. So pleased that he gave him more than he asked for. Wisdom beyond human understanding, wealth beyond imagination, honor beyond comparison. Silver became as common as stones in his kingdom. Kings traveled from distant lands just to hear him speak. He built the temple of God, a masterpiece of glory. Solomon didn't just know about God, he was close to him, very close. But then, something changed. It didn't happen overnight. There was no sudden rebellion, no dramatic fall, just a slow shift. The more he gained, the more he accumulated, the more his heart expanded beyond God. The Bible says, he loved many foreign women, and over time, they turned his heart. The same man who once built a temple for God began building altars to other gods. Let that sink in. The man God trusted with wisdom lost his spiritual direction. The man who had everything lost the one who gave it all. How does that happen? How does someone go from deep intimacy with God to silent distance? It happens when blessings stop pointing you to God and start pulling you away from Him. Solomon didn't lose because he lacked wisdom. He lost because he stopped applying it to his own heart. This is where it gets dangerous. Because blessings don't always stay blessings, not when they're mishandled. Money can become pride. Success can become self-reliance. Influence can become ego. And slowly, what was meant to elevate you begins to control you. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Anything you receive from God that leads you away from God is no longer a blessing. It's a distraction. It's a test. You're failing. Because the problem isn't the blessing. The problem is when the blessing becomes your source instead of God. When you trust your money more than God. When you depend on your success more than God. When your identity is built on what you have instead of who He is, you've already started drifting. And the scariest part? You may not even notice it. Just like a boat doesn't feel itself drifting until it's too far to get back easily. Jesus told a story about a young man, a son, who asked his father for his inheritance. In other words, give me what belongs to me now. And the father gave it to him. No resistance, no argument, just love. And with that blessing, the son left. He went far away, far from his father, far from home. At first, it felt like freedom. No rules, no limits, just pleasure and independence. But then, the money ran out, the friends disappeared, the lifestyle collapsed, and suddenly, the blessing was gone. He found himself broken, empty, feeding pigs, desperate, hungry. And then, he remembered, not the money, not the lifestyle. He remembered his father. Because the problem was never the blessing. The problem was the distance. And maybe that's where some people are right now. Not far from God physically, but far from Him in heart. Blessed, but distant. Successful, but disconnected. So how do you know if you're slowly forgetting God? Before this ends, you need to check something. Not your bank account, not your success, not your progress, your heart. Because forgetting God doesn't always look obvious. Sometimes it looks like a normal life. Here are the signs. And be honest with yourself. You rely more on your plans than your prayers. You make decisions without seeking God first. You thank yourself more than you thank Him. You only turn to God when something goes wrong. You're too busy for the very God who blessed you. And maybe the most dangerous one, you still believe in God, but you no longer depend on Him. If even one of these hit you, don't ignore it. Don't explain it away. Don't say, "I'll fix it later," because small distance eventually becomes separation. The good news is, this doesn't have to be your story. You can be blessed and still stay close to God, but it requires intention. First, stay grateful, not occasionally, daily. Gratitude keeps your heart grounded. It reminds you that everything you have came from Him. Second, build consistent time with God, not just when you feel like it, not just when you need something, but as a priority, because relationship doesn't grow by accident. Third, never forget where you came from. Remember the prayers you used to pray. Remember the nights you cried out to God. Remember when you had nothing and He showed up. Don't let success erase your memory. And finally, honor God openly, not just privately. Let people know who your source is, who brought you through, who gave you what you have, because the safest place to be is not just blessed, but still dependent. Listen carefully. God doesn't just care about blessing you. He cares about keeping you. Because what good is a blessing if it costs you your relationship with Him? What good is success if it leads to spiritual emptiness? Some people have gained everything and lost what matters most. Don't let that be you. Let me ask you something. If God took away everything you have today, your money, your success, your opportunities, would you still have Him? Or has your life become so full that there's no room left for God? Because one day, none of these things will matter. Not the money, not the status, not the success, only your relationship with Him. So don't wait until something is taken to remember God. Remember Him while you're still blessed. If this message spoke to you, don't scroll away. Respond to it. Type this in the comments. I will not forget God. Let it be a decision, not just words. And if you know someone who needs this reminder, share this video with them. Don't let what God gave you make you forget the God who gave it.